Hey everyone, it's Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review here for Saints Row 4, which is from GameStop, for 10 bucks. I bought this probably 5 years ago. It had been out for like 5 years. The game came out in 2013, and of course, this kind of like Gat Out of Hell, I believe were both supposed to be DLC. I think Gat Out of Hell was DLC from Saints Row the Third, but they ended up taking that DLC, expanding it into kind of a bigger game, kind of a repetitive game, to make Saints Row 4. And I remember when this came out, there was pretty much no marketing at all. Like, no one had trailers online, at least to my knowledge. It wasn't promoted on TV, even though I didn't watch much cable at that time in 2013. It was the year I graduated. I loved Saints Row. I'd been playing Saints Row since middle school. I got I think an Xbox 360 in probably 2008, 2009, somewhere in there, and I became obsessed with Grand Theft Auto and Saints Row, two of my favorite franchises of all time. This was really the period in my life, even though I had played video games up to that point and I had owned video game consoles like the PS1 and the PS2, I really became obsessed with video games because of Saints Row and Grand Theft Auto and Halo, like I said. Now, I never got to play this. The only thing I knew about it was like the first couple of hours of the game because I watched a few videos from the Rad Brad here on YouTube, who's a very famous walkthrough game player, or whatever you want to call the guy. And I love the guy. Really funny guy, really dry sense of humor, but really just a chill dude. And I saw his videos and I was like, wow, this is very different from most Saints Row games. It's essentially an alien invasion story that rips off They Live, mainly rips off the Matrix movies. If you're a big fan of the Matrix like myself, I love all three of the originals. I fucking hate the new one. I think it's horrible. Resurrections, whatever it's called. But I love the original trilogy. I think almost all of them are great in a lot of ways, and people really don't give 2 and 3, Reloaded and Revolutions, their credit that they deserve, in my opinion. They are better than about 95% of movies that come out now, and I will stand by that till the day I die. Anyway, Saints Row 4, I wanted to jump into this after I bought this game like 5 years ago and still hadn't played it. By the way, this is a PS3 review. I got inspired for that after this past Christmas break. Over my Christmas break, my work basically shut down for about a week to give us time off with our families, and I had a little bit of PTO, so I took off a little bit more time. I was basically off for like 2 weeks. And post-Christmas, I finished up a lot of stuff that I wanted to do, and I had a lot of free time for like 5 or 6 days. And I said, you know, I'm going to get up really early every day and play some Saints Row, the new 2022 reboot that everyone hates but me. Let me tell you, I'm not a shill. The storyline of this is horrible, truly horrible, and I reviewed it on my channel for like 51 minutes. It is a static photo with me on a microphone talking. If you don't like that kind of thing, that's not going to be your kind of review. But if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts, I have that review for this game. It's the only Saints Row game I've reviewed so far on the channel, aside from this one, obviously. Saints Row 4, by the way, I loved that reboot, the world of it, the scope of it, a lot of those things, beautiful graphics, all of that stuff. Really cool in that aspect, but again, that story was so underwhelming. And I realized I hadn't played Saints Row 4, and I wanted to jump into that. So for the last few months, I've been trying to get my Michael Goosebumps fan channel out of the way, and I thought, you know, I'll focus on some Saints Row 4 on the weekends, take the weekends off to just play some games. I've been buying games recently, watching movies, that kind of thing, just to enjoy my weekends when my wife and I aren't busy with some other stuff we have to do. And I recently, after like 2 months of playing Saints Row 4, I finally wrapped it up and finished it. Might have taken a little bit longer than I'm giving you credit for, but again, I just played on the weekends, mainly on Sundays. So, here we are. This game is different, as I said. It's essentially, you start the game off, and now, a lot of people, let me backtrack a little bit. A lot of people were not a fan of Saints Row the Third. I was. I loved Saints Row the Third. I thought it was really good, and I love it in a lot of ways just as much, but it's not as good as Saints Row 2. I love the original Saints Row as well, and I liked number 3 more than I liked number 1. I could have probably held up all these games over here that I brought. Let me start over again. I like this one. Not my favorite, but it's a good one. Saints Row 2 is the masterclass, my personal favorite of the franchise. Really excellent, really great. Can't wait to play through these again, God willing. Saints Row the Third, really, really good one. Really good one. Not as good as 2, but really good. And this one, I just recently bought. I've never played it, but I've heard it was good. I heard it was a little bit different, though, because of what happens. Gat Out of Hell. I do not own Agents of Mayhem, nor will I buy Agents of Mayhem, because it's not my kind of game. It's not Saints Row, so I don't count it. But I heard Gat Out of Hell is a little bit different, so I'm hoping it's good. Anyway, that's kind of my rundown on everything I think about Saints Row at the current moment. In Saints Row 3, it was your typical gangster story. You had a little bit of new stuff. You had some kind of like, I don't want to say sci-fi, but you had new elements of kind of like more technological stuff than Saints Row 1 and 2 had. Those were basically straight out gangster games, action games, mainly Saints Row 2 was a big action game. Saints Row 3, I cannot talk. Saints Row 3 maintains that, the action feel, the big gangster feel, but it kind of elevated a little bit higher in that regard, to something a little bit different, that a lot of fans were kind of felt like they were rubbed the wrong way. I remember when Saints Row the Third came out, it seemed like online a lot of people felt weird about it. Saints Row 4, being what was supposed to be a DLC, is elevated into a brand new level that people really, really did not like when it came out, but the ratings still hold up that this is a really solid game. I know the classical fans of 1 and 2, like myself, typically don't like this game, but I loved it. It's a buggy mess, but I really like Saints Row 4. But let me get to the actual story of this game. Essentially, there was an alien invasion, and they took over the world. Their name is called the Zin, and their leader is named Zinyak. And the Zen are basically like, they look like something out of Lord of the Rings. They have like a very tribal look to them. They look like the orcs out of Lord of the Rings. I'm not even a big Lord of the Rings fan, but they remind me of that. And the the graphics look pretty cool for everything, in my opinion, for this PS3 version. Again, it's a little buggy, frame rate drops affect that a lot. But the game starts off before the alien invasion, and you happen to be the President of the United States. That would not be the first time a criminal has been brought into office in the United States. I'm an American, I could say that. So, it was kind of interesting seeing how that happened, and honestly, it's kind of funny. I like it, because you start off the game making decisions on whether you want to save, whether you want to stop world hunger, or whether you want to completely cure cancer. That's a choice you get to make at the very beginning of the game. I think it was those two options specifically. I know the cancer one was for sure there. And Keith David, yes, Keith David, who has been a Saints Row voice actor for a while, mainly in the original game playing Julius. He was also in They Live, again, very inspired in this game. Or stolen, if you want to call it that. Keith David is your vice president. Shaundi is like your press secretary of the press, whatever it is called. And she's very businesslike now. I don't remember her being like this in Saints Row the Third, but it's been over 10 years since I played Saints Row the Third, so I don't remember. But Shaundi is very dressed up, very fit, not like a druggie like she used to be, which was kind of bizarre to me. I don't think that was ever before this game. I could be wrong, though. So this is a little bit in the future, as you can tell. But again, you are the president, and then the alien invasion happens, and essentially when the alien invasion happens, you get sucked into a Matrix movie. And I mean that. The Zinyak basically destroy, or Zinyak, the Zin, or the alien race, they basically destroy all of humanity. And want to destroy the Earth. And they put you into a Matrix type of thing, a simulator, if you want to call it, a simulation, even. And basically everyone who is alive is in this simulation, living like it's kind of regular life. However, you have superpower abilities now that you're realizing where you are. Kenzie manages to wake you up after she, due to plot armor, somehow gets saved and wakes up and then wakes everybody else up in the group. You're helping out with Kenzie, trying to wake up everybody else. And it's pretty much what happens here. You're trying to fight the Zen through the simulation, outside of the simulation, very much, again, like the Matrix. I'm surprised they did not get sued. It's the same concept, but I'm very surprised with the execution of the story beats that they did not get sued for this, because it's very, very, very much a Matrix-style movie. And again, there's a lot of They Live thrown in here. One of my favorite things to do in this game is that you have this influence of the Zen all over the map. You have statues of Zinyak you have to destroy. You have posters on the walls outside of streets, on buildings. Even on, like, when you're driving on the interstate and you see those big green signs on interstate signs. You have those things hanging up, and they will have different messages that the Zen want you to know. Like, obey. Does that sound familiar? It sounds like They Live, you know, the Keith David movie. Rowdy Roddy Piper is also in the game. That's pretty cool, too, as another They Live throwback. There's actually a scene from They Live recreated in this game, and when I saw that, as much fun as I was having with the game, as messy as it is, as much fun as I was having, I laughed my ass off about it. I thought it was one of the best scenes in the entire game. Really brought this game together for me. There's a lot of other influences in here. For example, you have Star Wars. You can have an actual lightsaber-esque type of thing. It looks like a samurai sword, but a lightsaber. Different colors, too, you can buy. And you have Tron, which Saints Row the Third had a little bit of that too. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. You have, what else was there? They have references to Akira. They actually have that red motorcycle from Akira in this game, and I don't think I ever saw that in Saints Row until this game, so that might be new, it might not be, just off the top of my head. Again, the graphics look really good to me. The music is good, typically, for the cutscene stuff. But I will say this, there is a glitch where if I get into a car finally, and then I get out, the radio is now playing nonstop. I can't turn it off. It literally will not stop. And that's kind of annoying. But the only radio station I really loved, which, by the way, the radio stations in this game are so much better than what you had here. This had almost nothing except for that synthwave station, Midnight Run or whatever it was called. Most of the stations on this new reboot were horrible. Saints Row 4 reminded me of why I love Saints Row's cars, why I love the customization on the cars, which that game had good customization too, but Saints Row 4 brought it back to my classical feelings of what we had in 1, 2, and 3 with the customization and the clothing options and all that stuff. It was really fun to play through this, but the music and stuff were really where it lied at being great. The music, most of the time, any of the stations are pretty solid. You have a classical station, you have a reggae station, you have one that's called K-Rhyme, but it's actually, if you say it all together, it says crime. It's a rap station, which I never realized that K-Rhyme was that, you know? I thought that was really funny. My favorite, personally, out of all the ones you have here, you probably have about 7 or 8 stations, my personal favorite was called The Mix. The Mix is an 80s throwback station, and it has a ton of stuff. Have you ever seen Stan Bush's You Got the Touch from Transformers the movie and anything else ever, aside from Bumblebee's movie? No, that's in this game. There's even references to Transformers the movie. They actually quote the lines that Optimus Prime and Megatron say towards the end of the game. I thought that was really cool, too. If you love movie references, you will love Saints Row games typically, but this game is filled with that stuff because of what it is in concept, being a ripoff of a movie, The Matrix. I had a blast. I had so much fun playing this, but again, the bugs are the problem. They're the biggest issue with this whole game. I noticed as I ran through the street, one of your superpowers is that you can run like the Flash. I really didn't get into superpowers that much. I'll try to remember that in a moment. But as I ran through the streets, the frame rates would drop so much, so heavily, that it would kind of just slow the game down a little bit. But it didn't always happen. But there were other bugs too. For example, about halfway through the game story, I got this thing where Keith David was delivering a monologue in one of the cutscenes. And now, every time I boot this game up, even now, after like a month later, after I had that scene, every time I boot this game up, it gets this bug in it where Keith David narrates that entire scene again. There are scenes in the middle of the cutscenes, sometimes, where characters will get delayed on their lines, and then everybody just starts messing up their lines. Like, for example, your main character, your boss that you play as, that you designed, that you picked the voice of, which, by the way, I picked Nolan North as my voice option, which was great. It actually says Nolan North as an option. It doesn't say, like, male 1, 2, and 3. It says Nolan North, which was cool. I love Nolan North. Very talented man. But there were cutscenes where, like, people would get delayed on their lines, and, like, one person would be talking, and then the next person would be talking immediately over them. That was really annoying. That happened a lot towards the latter half of this game's story, for me personally. And again, when it comes to the combat, it's kind of repetitive. I have to tell you that. It's kind of repetitive, which I'm fine with. The story is fairly short. You could probably do the story... I can't say it. You could probably do the story in about 5 or 6 hours. Not even that. But if you do these subplots and stuff, all these sideline stories, like I did, they really fill out the game. It could take like 9 or so hours, if not more. It took me months, because I wanted to try to hit 100%. I could not, for the life of me, get 100% of this game. I'm stuck at like 92 or 93, something like that, and I'm just kind of done. There's nothing really else mission-wise I can do, and I really don't want to do challenges. I think challenges are kind of just filler crap. But a lot of the offshoot subplot stuff were kind of fillers for this game as well, just so you know. If you haven't played it yet, going into it, you'll know. Let me get back to the superpowers, though. The superpowers were a massive letdown to me. You have one that's like a stomp. You can't fly in the game, but you can jump really high, and you can keep increasing that, basically, where you can jump higher and higher. You can eventually glide, where it feels like you're flying. All of that stuff, to me, even though it drops the frame rate, it's really nice. It looks and it feels very fluid. The smoothness of the controller and whatever are really nice. I like all that, too. If you go to a building, you can run up the side of the building at some point, and I really love that about that as well. it was cool. It was like playing a Spider-Man PS4 game before the PS4 Spider-Man game ever existed, which kind of just entails that it feels like a Spider-Man game. In the old versions, like the Amazing Spider-Man, the first game of that series. I love that. That was really cool. Some of the other powers you have are like, for example, you have telekinesis, which comes into play with some particular mini games and stuff. This kind of power is really fun to use in the main world when you're not in the middle of a mission. And then you have ice powers, lightning powers, fire powers, which are all kind of conjoined into the same thing. You have an option amongst all of those you can use. Those are really cool too. I liked all of that as well. I will tell you this, I designed my character to look like my Saints Row 2 original character on my Xbox 360 game, because I wanted that sense of familiarity as well. I tried to do that on the new Saints Row, and I couldn't do it. I don't know why, I just could not get him to look like that original character. But, I tried. The cars are really nice. The new cars that are alien-themed, I love those. I do not like the alien motorcycle things. The Zen motorcycle things kind of fly, and you can't really always get your hands on them. But one thing that's good about this game is you can have access to using cheat codes. So I use cheat codes in the game too. I think I died one time in the entire game, which I don't think I would have anyway if I had not used cheat codes for that, because frankly, it's a very easy game. The superpower stuff basically nullify the point of even not needing cars, needing guns, anything like that. You could probably just punch people to death in the game and probably beat the entire game, more than likely. But let's talk about the weapons, though. You do have, let me try this again. You do have some new alien-style weapons, and I think every single one of them suck ass. I don't like any of those weapons. I think the sound effects suck. I think the effectiveness don't really resound with me. But most of the guns in this game don't feel like that. Even the regular guns that we kind of adopted from 1, 2, and 3 that are in this, like the rocket launcher, the machine guns, all of that stuff, they feel better than the alien guns. Some I really love, but a lot of them just, the sound effects and everything just feel weak, and I don't know if it's because of this game or some kind of new sound design or what. I can't figure out what it is, but they don't feel as powerful as I remember 1, 2, and 3 and their guns feeling. So for me, I really love the game. I had a really good time. It's not perfect. It looks really good when it's running well. The PS3 is a very powerful system for its time, and I stand by that. The game itself is a buggy mess, and I think it was rushed out very clearly, and that was a bad decision on Sony's part, and or not Sony's part, but you know, the developers for this, Volition. I think it was a bad decision to rush this out, but like I said, it was so rushed that there was no media. I don't remember seeing any commercials or any kind of trailers on YouTube when YouTube was so big at this time when this game was coming out. There was nothing. I didn't even know the game was coming out back when it came out, and I knew about 2 and 3 because I didn't play 1, but I knew about 2 and 3 when those were coming out, when they were announced, because they were massive, massive releases. People loved them, especially 2, dude. 2 was so popular when it came out. It still is popular. It's still the typical fan favorite of the series a lot of the time. But 3 is for another half of the franchise fan base. This game, Saints Row 4, yes, it's over the top. But Saints Row has always been over the top. Even the original game has been over the top. You have restaurants called fucking freckle bitches. You know what I mean? Like, there is clearly an over-the-top nature to Saints Row, and to me, that's what makes it fun. I think Saints Row, personally, really shines in parody. I really do think it does that, and I think it does that well because it's an inheritor, in my opinion, to the mantle that was San Andreas from Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto used to have this parody nature to it. It really doesn't have that in recent years, at least not traditional parody sense of like a Mel Brooks parody. You know, it kind of went in this new direction of like a Scorsese commentary or something. And that's not bad either. It's just I miss Grand Theft Auto being this kind of game. Playing this now, playing it in 2023, 10 years later after this was made and released and whatever. Yeah, it's a mess, but it's a really fun mess, and I really enjoyed my time with it, even if it does have its problems. I think it's a blast. I really recommend it to this day and think it's a really good game. And I do think, personally, when I compare Saints Row 4 for PS3 to Saints Row, the reboot, I guess is what you'll call it, 2022, something like that, if I had to compare these two, I like this more than I like this, but I love a lot of aspects of both, but both are messes. Giant messes. Because the story here is really good. I really enjoy it, even though the subplot stories are not that great. it's kind of repetitive, so on and so on. This is also happening to be repetitive with a really horrible story. The only thing I really love about this is the world and the graphics, and sometimes the guns and customization. I had some good things to say about this game. I do think it's very underrated for what it is. The story sucks ass. It's a very political mess, frankly. But this game here doesn't really have that. It's a really well-crafted game with a really great cast, really good acting as well. Saints Row 4 is not perfect, but it's pretty damn close, in my opinion. I think I had a blast most of the time. One of my favorite things, by the way, is the glitching in the game, because it's supposed to seem as a simulation, like as you go throughout the game, as you fix and figure out different things that you do in the game, different issues start to happen in the simulation, different glitches, if you will. These are actually programmed glitches. So for example, I was walking down the street, or running, something like that at one point, and I saw this dude coming down the street on the sidewalk with this humongous head. He looked like me, right? Like a humongous head, like enormous. And I was like, what the fuck's wrong with that guy? And I thought it was just a traditional glitch, and then I see this other guy walking through with Slender Man arms. Real long arms, like his fingers are dragging on the ground type of stuff. And I laughed so hard. And then I would see them every once in a while in the game. You're supposed to see those. And I thought that was so neat as a detail. That is a really creative thing that most people wouldn't have thought of. As well as when you're looking at buildings, or you're in character customization, whatever, your character will fade in and out as like a bricky, pixelated mess, because that's symbolic of, hey, the simulation is starting to crash, we're fixing this, we're changing that. That stuff is really cool. And the way Saints Row 4 ends, it makes me sad that we really never had a traditional 5 that tied directly to this, aside from Gat Out of Hell, which I haven't played, like I said. There was a lot of stuff they fixed in this game that I would have loved. With the ending we got at the end of this, I would have loved to have seen the direction that Saints Row 5 originally would have went before the reboot. I think it could have been really cool to see what happened, because they had a really cool setup for where they could go for future installments, and I don't want to ruin that for you. But the very sci-fi nature of this game might rub some of you wrong. I was more offended by the repetitive nature, as I said. That's more offensive to me than a new genre, subgenre, whatever. Anyway, when it comes to Saints Row 4, big fan. Big fan of this one. Again, I like it more than the reboot. I think most people do in the fan base. It just kind of seems like it's like that. I don't mean any slight on them, I just mean, hey, this is, to me, more of my kind of game. I had a blast. A really good time for that 2 or 3 months I was playing through this. It was really fun, and I recommend it highly if you haven't played it. If I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, I'd probably give Saints Row 4 maybe a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's pretty great. Pretty great, but it's got a lot of problems. They're not just nitpicks, they are truly technical issues in the game itself, and there's no avoiding that. Just plain and simple, you can't avoid it. Anyway, have you played Saints Row 4? Do you love it? Do you hate it? I'd love to hear what you have to say down in the comment section down below about this game. I definitely recommend it to the right people. If you're the type who are not happy with the recent direction of Saints Row, you're probably not going to like this. You're probably not going to like it. I'm sorry, but you probably won't. Anyway, with all that being said, thank you for watching, guys. God bless you all. Have a good one, and goodbye.